Hey, what's up, team? It's Sherman here from Geek Psychology. This is the third video, round 3 in this new series that I'm doing. And real quick to recap what's been happening. The first video and the second video were explaining kind of what the dominant function is and how it interacts with that inferior function and how it kind of tempts you to bounce back and forth to explore the complete opposite world, right, than you're used to. And then how you need the auxiliary function to bridge that gap and make it a little bit smoother so it's not such a roller coaster, right? So in this video, I'm going to talk about the tertiary function. You have the auxiliary function, so you naturally have the polar opposite of that within your function stack. And that is your tertiary function. At around 30 years old or so, you are kind of more comfortable using that tertiary function. It gives you another viewpoint, another way of making decisions, and it can be very helpful. It can be. It's not always. And the problem is there's a difficulty balancing all those functions, right? Your tertiary function is naturally easily relatable for your dominant function because it's of the same attitude. If you're an introvert, it is also introverted. If you're an extrovert, it's also extroverted. So that means you don't need to really struggle to understand where it's coming from, right? So because of that, you kind of have this tendency to just ignore the auxiliary function every once in a while because it's not something you really want to do naturally, right? You don't want to like force yourself into this other awkward situation, right? If I'm an introvert, which I am, I don't always want to extrovert myself. It's draining for me, right? It's kind of exhausting, and I would rather just kind of sit back and kind of understand the situation before interacting with it, right? But the auxiliary function pushes me to just interact first and then kind of recap what happened. But the tertiary function, I don't need to do that, right? I can always just look into my past and try to understand how the whole situation works out, and my experiences in the past, how do they relate to my value set and all that stuff, right? So it's a matter of like restraint and balance. And around this time, you need to just take a real close look at where your talent points are being spent, basically, right? Like, am I actually going in the direction that I want to go? If you're spending too much time, talking with your tertiary function, your newbie, as I call it, then, you're not going to be a balanced individual, right? And because of that, your inferior function is going to start like bubbling up, right? Like it wants some attention too, right? It wants to, get you to experience that other world, right? As an introvert, my inferior function is extroverted, right? So I naturally, if I'm not extroverting myself using my auxiliary function, then that inferior function is going to be like, hey, what about all this stuff out here, right? You need to, create some action. You need to start moving and do some things. And, it just gets really intense, and it pulls me into that state, right? And that's where more problems happen. So this whole thing of the dominant function and the tertiary function kind of being stuck together and you ignoring the auxiliary function is called a loop. In this case, it's a dominant and tertiary loop. People call it tertiary temptation as well, right? So if you're stuck too much in there, you are going to not grow to be like a complete, well-rounded, balanced individual, right? Your view on reality is going to be kind of skewed either towards extroversion or introversion. So what do? Well, you listen to that auxiliary function, right? With balance, right? You want to be aware of your tertiary function too, but really check in, make sure if that's the right choice, and try to put more emphasis, more weight on your auxiliary function to balance yourself out. So you do that, and the kind of result of that, the benefit of that, is that you are able to actually make that bridge and make that connection with your inferior function. So basically, to recap it all, you need to focus on balance. And around this time, around 30 years old or so, is when that tertiary function is actually kind of becoming more reliable, assuming that you've done work into the auxiliary function and balanced with your dominant function, right? So you really need to just look at it, make sure it's healthy, and then use that tertiary function as a way to balance your perspective or to make better decisions. You do that, and then your inferior function has an easier time, right, being accessed. So, you can actually kind of bridge that gap easily, and you can go into your shadow functions and stuff like that, which is a whole another set of many, many videos that I might not actually get into. But by the time that you have, gathered more awareness and more balance and more connection to your unconscious, then you're able to, go into your shadow. You're able to explore that whole realm of stuff that you've repressed from experiences and thoughts and all that stuff. And it's just this massive treasure chest of stuff that you can explore and use to better yourself. So just make sure that you really have awareness of your tertiary function and that you are balancing your comfort zone of introversion or extroversion. Stick with the auxiliary function when you can. Use the tertiary function to kind of support that and to gain just more insight. And the more you do that, the more comfortable you are with those three functions, then the more you'll be able to kind of move into that inferior function in a healthy way that's not just going to take a hold of you and put you in the grip. So I think that's about it. The next video is going to be about introversion and extroversion, and hopefully I'll be able to clear up a few ideas within that. Thank you very much for watching. Any questions, comments, just want to talk, whatever it is, any requests, let me know down below, and looking forward to hearing from you. So thanks a lot, and good luck, have fun. Balance, balance, balance. Balance, balance, balance.